20 things that I wish I knew in my 20s. Took me about 35 years to realize rule number one, which is that the universe is entirely mental. Another way to put that is that your mental state dictates your outer state. And that's fundamentally what most religions teach us. Whether it's the Abrahamic religions, whether it is Buddhism, whether it is Hermetic teachings, the Kabbalion, it all boils down to this. It boils down to the idea that the world around us, the physical world, the touchable world, is nothing but a reflection of our inner state. As a matter of fact, there's a bunch of research right now coming out of Donald Hoffman's lab, who is out of UC Irvine, and he's been one of the frontiers showing that the time-space constraint of the physical world is not fundamental to reality. What that means that is consciousness is fundamental to reality, and that matter does not precede but precedes consciousness. So first comes consciousness, then comes matter. And that puts everything on its head, because if that's the case, then there is an intelligence that is essentially the organizing driver of this reality. And understanding that gave me a lot of clarity looking at my own life. And everyone can do this. Just look at the life you have right now and go back and look at, the different eras of your life. And just look how reality looked at a given point in time. Your relationships, your jobs, your health, mentally and physically. And try to see if your inner state during that time was reflective of the relationships. And when I say inner state, what I'm talking about are your fundamental beliefs, your thoughts, your ideas, your dispositional emotional state on a day-to-day. Are you operating from a lower energetic state, from a higher energetic state? And ultimately what you come to find is that reality is not as it is, but as you are. Why? Because everything I just mentioned, making up your inner state, creates this lens. And it's a colored lens through which you view reality. And if you don't like the color through which you view reality, you're not going out there and trying to change reality. What you're doing is you're going to try and change that lens. So you're going to rewrite those beliefs. You're going to rewrite the thoughts. You're going to rewrite, or at least work on your emotional state. And knowing that was freeing to me, because it put the control back to me. And I realized that for a very long time, I was enslaving myself to people, conditions, and events externally that were dictating my internal state. And that's why the Buddhists call the world around us, the physical world, the world of illusion, because we believe it to be real. And it is real in the physical sense, because obviously we feel and we perceive. However, it is a reflection of our inner state first. So if we can change our inner state and persist in that change, because we live in a time-space constraint, the world around us needs some time to reflect that change internally. Number two, you are the average of the 5 beliefs, ideas, and intentions you spend the most time with. And that's a slight change I made to the phrase that you've probably heard, which is you are the average of the 5 people you spent most of your time with, because most of us, turns out, we now spend more time with the computer, with the phone, rather than with people. But the rule itself doesn't change. And what the rule itself just means is we are so malleable. Our subconscious mind is so malleable to repetition that anything and anyone we surround ourselves with is going to impact our subconscious mind. So whatever these people believe, whatever these people's intentions are, if we are just around them all the time, we're going to absorb some of that. But because now we're more on our phone than we are with people, guess what? Your algorithm is curated by companies and by people that try to get your attention. And they have their own beliefs, they have their own intentions, and they have their own ideas. So you have to be very careful of what you're consuming on a day-to-day. I know a lot of people actually have guy friends and girlfriends that think all men are trash, all women are trash. But their higher self, their ideal self is, oh, I want to be in a happy relationship. Guess what? All what their feed is giving them all the time is confirmation that girls are this and guys are this, and girls are this and guys are this. So it doesn't really matter what you want. If what you believe is opposed to what you want, what you're getting is what you believe. And people need to realize that, because it's going to be reflected in the physical world. And one thing I noticed is that we are being bombarded all the time. We can't really avoid that. But we can avoid being bombarded with things we don't want to be and we don't want to believe. So you can change your algorithm. You can start listening to people that align with the version of self that you strive to be. And by sheer repetition of being around that and consuming those ideas, guess what? You're going to be equally impressed, but now with the beliefs and ideas that are part of your higher self. Number 3, you are being brainwashed. So select your brainwashing detergent wisely. It essentially maps to the second point and merely means that whether it is the people around you that you surround yourself with, whether it's the topics you consume on social media and on YouTube, whether it's the things that you read, whether it's the things that you narrate to yourself, your inner conversations, all of that is brainwashing. And from the moment you get up to the moment you go to sleep, you are being brainwashed. No one gets away from that. The only thing that we can really do is choose what we brainwash ourselves with. And that's, again, where your willpower needs to come in and step in and realize that, well, if you're getting the messages that are misaligned with who you want to be, you have to take those out and you have to replace those with the things that align with your higher self. I remember, for example, I had a bunch of health issues in 2018, 19, and 20. I had tinnitus, I had panic attacks, and then I got like long COVID neurological symptoms, muscle twitches, tingling, and all that type of stuff. And I was so worried. I thought I had like MS or something chronic, something crazy. And what I realized was that all the time I was essentially asking myself, why is this happening to me? Why me? Everyone else is doing well. Everyone is healthy. All my friends are going to the clubs, and I'm worried whether, this is going to develop into something serious. And so I was actually surrounding myself a lot with this idea that, and specifically in Reddit forums, that I am doomed. I was in these long COVID forums and I was reading, dude, I have this, I have that. We're so screwed. So I was surrounding myself with that message that I'm roasted. And it took me to realize that, well, guess what? If I'm feeding myself that belief as a narrative all the time, like a prompter, what's going to happen? Knowing that my inner state is going to be reflected in my outer state, I had to rewrite that. So what I did is I curated the books that I listened to. I listened to a lot of Joe Dispenza. I listened to a lot of Dr. Jordan Peterson, where it all is aligned with you are responsible for anything that is happening to you. Joe Dispenza specifically speaks about, meditation and healing meditation, the fact that we can impress our subconscious mind in deep meditation when we're in the theta states to heal ourselves. And so I surrounded myself with those beliefs that I needed for my higher self, essentially to objectify in the physical world. And that's something that is absolutely life-changing. When you replace those prompters with prompters that you actually want, that align with who you want to be, your life is going to change very quickly and drastically. Number 4, any spiritual practice should have a practical element to it. And what I mean by that is if your spiritual practice does not allow you to achieve a certain level of emotional stability amidst turbulent external circumstances, that practice serves vanity more than your higher self. And I have a lot of people that try to be religious, try to be spiritual, but life around them does not necessarily reflect that, right? And in the Bible, Jesus said, those are people that worship me with their mouth, but not with their heart. And what that means is worshiping with the heart is feeling a certain level of faith. And that level of faith should bring you a certain level of emotional stability and peace amidst the difficulties that we're all facing all the time. And that's for me always the hallmark to know how my relationship with my higher self, with the force, with quantum, with God, with imagination, whatever you want to call it, serves me, is how much is it allowing me to regulate myself emotionally amidst turbulences around me. And if it doesn't, if I'm just being swung up and down based on the events and conditions around me, then I'm worshiping my higher self or God with the mouth more than with the heart. Number 5, my inner conversations with myself and with other people internally will dictate my thoughts, moods, and emotions. What they also do is they will dictate my actual interactions with other people. And that's something that I realized a lot in my past relationships. I noticed that the way that I would speak with my girlfriends internally. The way they would, let's say, do something that annoys me, and then I'm thinking in my head, why the heck did she not twist the head of the toothpaste? Stuff like that. You think those are small things. But that annoyance that I'm holding within, again, because of the law that your internal state needs to be reflected externally, it applies all the time and everywhere. Guess what? I was fighting way more with my partners. The more I was having these conversations internally that annoyed me about them, made me angry, and made me sad. So I realized that really what I have to do is have conversations internally with people that align with my highest version of self. And my highest version of self would be in a relationship, in this specific example, that is fulfilled and happy, right? So if I'm in a relationship that is fulfilled and happy, and in that version of my higher self, then it needs to be reflected in my inner dialogue with that person. And the moment you start switching that, the moment you become aware that you're actually running on autopilot and having a fight with everything and everyone around you internally, and that will be reflected externally, you will start cleaning that up. And that actually reminds me of something that Neville Goddard said. He said, you are the sum total of the beliefs and thoughts you hold about yourself, plus the thoughts and the beliefs you have of other people that they would reject of themselves. So you can question. Anytime you think something about someone, ask yourself, would that person accept that thought about themselves? If you think that that person is an idiot, annoying, or dirty, would that person be accepting that belief or thought? Most likely not. And if they would reject that belief and thought, what you have to realize that that becomes part of yourself. It's a trippy thing to think about, but also a very, very important responsibility once you realize that that's actually true. Number 6, I run on autopilot over 90% of my day. And that ties back to the point about us being brainwashed and the subconscious mind really running the show. Most of the thoughts that we have every day, most of the actions that we participate in every day are repetitive actions. And the fact that I run on autopilot over 90% of the day made me really study what that autopilot was running on, because that autopilot is your operating system. It's, again, your subconscious mind. It's the thing that runs the show without you really knowing that it runs the show. And it's super important to realize this, because the entire goal of self-improvement, of spirituality, is to take yourself off of autopilot for some time, to analyze what is going on in your deepest beliefs, in your deepest fears, in your deepest thoughts. Work on those, clear those up, change them and align them with a version of self that you're striving to be, and then put yourself back on autopilot, because the reality is you will always be on autopilot whether you want it or not. However, there's practices such as meditation, such as reflection, visualization, journaling that allow you to temporarily take yourself off of autopilot. And you need to realize that that autopilot is the biggest shareholder of your reality. So you need to make sure that you know what the autopilot is running on, and then clean that operating system up. Number 7, acting from a lower energetic state will provide suboptimal outcomes. What I mean by that is any decisions and actions I make and take from a state of fear, a state of anger, a state of despair will not provide optimal outcomes. And the reason for that is, from a perspective of the amygdala, the fight or flight, when you're in a low energetic state, your entire system is set up to neutralize that negative energetic state. We've all found ourselves being in a low energetic state and binge eating, getting drunk, participating in hedonistic behaviors. The reason is that subconsciously what we're trying to do is mask that pain, neutralize that pain. And because of that, it can never create optimal outcomes, because it's all about the neutralization of pain. So what I noticed was, in order for me to really create optimal decisions, and after that optimal actions, I had to put myself first in a more calm, neutral, and peaceful state. And the way I was doing that, or the way, let's say, I improve doing that, because it's still difficult when life hits, is absolutely normal. Everyone has their bills, everyone has relationship problems, job problems, bosses saying that. We're all afraid of certain things. So really what worked was, before I make any drastic decisions, make sure I'm in a more neutral state. Sometimes it's just waiting and letting that chapter of your life cool down a little bit. The other thing that really helps is meditation. If you do that daily, 10 to 15 minutes, it allows your nervous system to just go down, your energetic state to neutralize somewhat. And the third thing that really helped me was doing difficult physical things. Going to the gym, doing difficult things relative to my own abilities. For someone that might be running a marathon, for someone else that might just be jogging for half an hour. You have to apply that to your own benchmark. Or fasting, not eating for 24 hours, going in a sauna, going in a cold plunge, whatever it is that pushes you physically will allow you to also find mentally a certain level of peace. That's the beauty about the yin and the yang, the body and the mind. You can use one to regulate the other and vice versa. And then when you're in a more neutral state, what you're actually going to do is you're gonna be able to make decisions and then participate in actions that come from a more creative state. And that creative state is always aligned with your higher self, because now you're able to actually hear your intuition within and follow the steps that approximate you closer to your higher self. Number 9, identification is greater than expectation. What I mean by that is, when it comes specifically to doing things in terms of career or your job, most of my life, all I was doing was going for expectations. I was born and raised in Germany. My parents are from Iran, and my parents hammered it since I was young. You have to go and get your degree, bachelor's, MBA, PhD. You have to be a doctor, a professor. And so I did. And the reason I did that is I was doing those things because I was expecting that those accolades bring something with it. So I was thinking, well, if I go and get my MBA and if I go get my PhD, I will have a certain level of status. I will be perceived a certain way. I will have a certain level of money. I will have a certain level of freedom. So I was not doing the things that my soul was asking me to do. I was doing the things that my mind expected to be the right thing. And that, in my case, was a result of my upbringing and a result of what my parents pushed upon me. But all of us, to a certain degree, are doing things out of expectation. Again, what took me until I was in my mid-30s was realizing that if I actually do something I am identified with rather than have an expectation on, I will be actually operating from a state of high energy, love, and creativity. And not only will I get those things that the expectation would bring with it, such as becoming wealthy or having status or whatever else that is that you attach to the outcome, you will get that, and you will get that multiplied and magnified. And once I realized that, I really started doing things more that are aligned with my passion. What is it that I feel like doing naturally? So I'm identified with the thing more than expecting anything from it. And all of us know that to a certain degree. When you actually do something that you're genuinely passionate about, time and space just evaporates. For example, if you have a conversation with someone that is deeply engaging, you forget about time and space. And that's because you're absolutely identified with what you do. And turns out that what you get as an outcome is more than your mind could have ever expected. Number 10, voluntarily facing difficult things is the key to building self-trust. And that's something that psychologists have known for a long time. There is a therapy called exposure therapy. And what that essentially is you work with a psychologist, and the psychologist exposes you voluntarily to the things you are most afraid of. And by doing that, what actually happens is you're not becoming less afraid of the thing you're facing, you're becoming more courageous across domains. And that's actually something worth knowing. It's a hallmark finding in psychology. So for example, let's say you're afraid of heights. And let's say you work with a psychologist, and that psychologist exposes you to that fear step by step. First, you might say, all right, can you look at a picture of someone standing something tall? Yes. Okay, now can you maybe go out and look at something tall? Okay, yeah, maybe I can. And so he exposes you until the point where you can actually face that ultimate fear. But turns out you're not becoming less afraid of facing heights. You're becoming more courageous. And courage is a muscle that you don't just turn on and turn off. It will apply across the other areas of your life. So you're going to be more likely to tackle any one of your other fears once you face any fear. And by knowing that, what you can actually ask yourself is, what am I afraid of the most? And Carl Jung said, you will find what you most need where you least want to look. You will find what you most need looking at the thing you're most afraid of. And the reason for that is you're actually becoming more courageous. You're proving to yourself that you're more than. You're building self-trust. And the way to do it is exposing yourself to that voluntarily, not involuntarily, because then you become traumatized. Number 11, facing your fears whilst following your intuition is the pathway to heaven, and kind of ties to the last point, but with the additional element of following your intuition. And your intuition typically tries to put you in states of uncertainty. Why? Because your higher self wants you to become that version that you want to become. But for you to become the version you want to become, guess what? You have to do things you haven't done before. And when you have to do things you haven't done before, neurochemically speaking, you're afraid. Why? Because evolutionary speaking, you're going into uncharted territory. Every time you're going into uncharted territory, your fight or flight response is activated. Don't go there. Don't do this. They might judge you. Don't take this risk. That's stupid. That's not going to work out. Just stay in this job. Just make this relationship work. All of that are fears, even though your intuition is telling you to move one way. But the pathway to heaven is realizing that those fears are what's holding you back, following your intuition. So to a certain degree, you have to be courageous, doing the things you're afraid of, because you know intuitively it's the right thing to do. And the word courage comes from the French word cœur, which means heart. So you're literally choosing the heart over fear. Number 12, pushing the body helped me build mental resilience. And that was a big one for me because, as I said, when I had these health issues, I was asking myself all the time, dude, why the heck is this happening to me? I was fine 30 years of my life, no problem whatsoever. Played semi-professional soccer, was out traveling, always fit, and all of a sudden, one after another. Chronic tinnitus, both ears, 5 sounds, 3 on the left, 2 on the right. Panic attacks, muscle twitches, brain fog, brain zaps. Got 7 MRIs done in 2021 and 2022. I was like, what's going on? And it was difficult. I was dealing with that mentally. What really helped me to stay sane during that time was doing difficult physical things. It was pushing me physically. And that goes back again to the fact that, when you do something physically that's difficult, what you're actually doing is you're creating data points that allow you to look at and to figure out and realize that you're actually more capable than you think you were. But that data point doesn't just serve you physically, it also serves you mentally. So now when you face something that's difficult mentally, you created a data point proving to yourself that you're more than you thought you were. And guess what? It's going to apply mentally as well. And you're much more likely to persevere and push through. Number 13, tuning out external noise is fundamental to detecting inner noise. The reality is, and I live in Vegas, man, there's just noise 24/7. The reality is that if we don't take time on a daily to mute the external noise, we will never be able to listen and hear what's going on within us. From the morning you get up, check your phone, ding, 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 email, chat, boom, text messages, Instagram, YouTube, whatever that is, music. All the time we're being just bombarded with noise, noise, noise. The reality is you have an inner noise. And the reality is if you don't listen to your inner noise because your outer noise is too loud, that inner noise is just going to grow because that is a scream from your higher self. That is a scream, if you want to call it, from God to wake you up to listen to it. Why? Because if you listen to it and you act upon it, then you are able to achieve your goals. That's when you're able to approach your higher self. But in order to listen to that voice, you need to mute the external noise. And the way you do it is you make time. You start even sitting in silence, 10 minutes, 15 minutes. Buddy of mine who really struggled with that, really good friend of mine, he's very high achiever, super smart guy, great career, but his mind is just chat, 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 chat all the time. So what he started doing was 3 minutes of meditation daily. And he had a difficult time even for the first minute initially. And he said, bro, like even 3 minutes, he said, I just feel more energized and calm. And so a lot of that stuff is low hanging fruit. You don't realize how much it helps you until you actually do it. And really how easy and simple it can be sometimes. But you just have to do it. You have to do it. You have to set time aside to do it. Sit in silence, read something, meditate, and just listen, while you're in meditation, just let those thoughts come up. Don't have to do anything. All you need to do is observe them. Don't judge them. Don't put any valence on it. It's neither good or bad. You just let them be. It's like taking a stone and throwing it in a little water puddle and you see the dirt coming up. Think of the thoughts that come up in meditation instead. It's just dirt coming up. You don't have to do anything. Just let it be. And that's a way for those thoughts to come up, bubble up, and then evaporate. You're processing them that way. But if you have the outer noise on all the time, though that dirt is just going to accumulate and it's going to spiral up and it's going to impact your life negatively. 14, and that was a big one. Following the goals of the mind is better than not having any goals, but it's worse than following the goals of the heart. And it's something that I essentially just mentioned a couple of points ago. The fact that you have goals that you set for whatever reason, most of the time because you're expecting something out of it. You want to become rich, you want to have a nice house, you want to have a nice partner, you want to be perceived as high status, whatever that is. Having those goals is better than having no goals, because when you have no goals, you're very likely to fall into nihilism and essentially just rot away to a certain degree. So it's good to have those goals. But in my life, most of those goals were based on expectation. Those were goals of the mind. Oh, if I have this, then I'll have the car. Oh, if I'm a professor, then I'll have status. The truth is, that's better than having no goal, but it's worse than following your passion. And the reason for that is when you follow goals of the mind, you're confusing something very fundamental. You think that if I work hard, for example, then I will have money and then I will feel safe. So what you're actually doing is you're outsourcing a feeling state and you're attaching it to achieving something externally. And when you do that, you're stuck in a hamster wheel, because you get to that point and you realize, I still don't really feel too accomplished. I still don't feel too loved. I still don't feel so free. I need to probably chase for more and work harder. And you're stuck in that. And when you're actually doing something that comes from the heart, following the goals of the heart, you are again identified with what you are doing. And when you're identified with what you're doing, not only will you be more likely to achieve the goals, but you will be more likely to achieve the goals that actually you need rather than the ones that you want. Because a lot of the mind is wants. I want this, I want that, I want that. But you really have no clue what you need, because you get to those wants and you're like, oh, that wasn't really it. So that was a big one, really just trusting my heart to dictate where I should move and what goals I should set. 15, meditation taught me how life works. That's a very brief one. But when I started meditating, I was so excited when I would get to a deep state. I'd be like, oh man, I must be opening up the third eye. This is it, this is it. So what I was doing was defying the purpose of meditation. Why? I was doing meditation to get something out of it, which again violates this idea of identifying with what you do rather than doing it for an expectation. And guess what? The moment you get so excited and you're like, oh, it's coming, like, I'm going so deep in meditation, I'm gonna have some crazy experience. Whoop, it pulls you right back out because you're doing it for that expectation. And I realized I'm actually getting deeper into meditation the more I can stay neutral. The less I get super happy that I'm getting into a deep state, or the less I get frustrated that I'm not getting into a deep state. And when I'm just identified with consciousness and awareness itself without judging it, that's when I go the deepest. And guess how life works? It works in a very, very similar manner. Whether it's going good or it's going bad, if you can stay neutral, you're not enslaving yourself to physical reality. And that was just something that brought a lot of clarity, really, that these laws that you find and these nuggets, these pockets of knowledge that you acquire throughout meditation are actually life lessons. Number 16, big one. I had to let go of how I view my parents. That sounds a little bit harsh, but it really isn't that harsh. Love my parents. My parents always wanted the best for me. And they were born and raised in Iran in a very different time where, in Persian culture, a lot of it is about education. A lot of it is about status. It's like being a doctor, it's being a lawyer, being a professor. So that was imprinted from when I was a kid. Well, you need to go to university. So I did bachelor's, master's, PhD in the US. Got all of that done. But the reality was doing the things that I was genuinely passionate about. For example, doing product development, coming up with a protein bar, signing with modeling agencies, moving to Las Vegas, starting a YouTube channel. If any of those I would have mentioned to my parents, they would have said, that's not a real job, man. What are you doing? You're wasting your time. That's because they didn't know any different than that. So what I had to do is essentially realize that if I want to move towards my goals, to accomplish my higher self, I had to let go of certain beliefs that I was holding. And one of those beliefs that I held fundamentally is that, those are not careers. That's just a waste of time. Why? Because as a kid, again, I was around that narrative all the time that only working a corporate job, working your way up in corporations, being a doctor, being a lawyer, those are real jobs. So for me to really change that belief, I had to also, and I don't want to say downgrade, but I had to reframe the view of my parents as being this almighty, all-knowing, omnipotent, omniscient being that always know what's right. They knew what's right for them at that time, but they cannot know what's right for me at my time. And so the moment I was able to do that and not hold on to the fact that I need to keep them as, this entity that always knows best and know better, I was actually able to move towards my desired self. That was a very difficult shift for me to make because in our cultures, parents are viewed very, very highly. There is this hierarchy between younger and older as well. And for me to realize that I'm actually not downgrading them, I'm actually going to upgrade them by being able to become my authentic self, to move towards the things that I want to move to and reflect to them that by becoming that version, what I have accomplished on a personal level. And sure enough, that actually happened over time once I was pursuing my dreams. They realized in the beginning they were hesitant, but once they realized how that changes your energetic state, your passion, your compassion, your love, your creativity, it opened their eyes. But until you actually do that, it won't happen. 17. Any proper relationship with the divine is easily put to test. Believing in something higher without it improving your life, again, is a form of vanity. And any functioning relationship with your higher self, with God, with spirituality is easily put to test. And it's easily put to test because in the Bible it says, if you have faith as big as a mustard seed, you can actually tell a mountain to move from here to there and it will move. That much faith. If you can actually work on your inner state, even that much, if you start working on changing your beliefs, aligning your beliefs, being aware of your thoughts and refusing to have thoughts that misalign with a version of self that you are, you will see how quickly the material world around you is going to mold to your inner state. It's an immutable law. But you have to be persistent in it. You can't just do a meditation one day, even a week or a month, and all of a sudden expect all of that to happen so quickly. Again, we are constrained by time and space. So you need to be persisting in your upgraded state of consciousness until the world around you reflects it, but it will, as long as you persist in it. Number 18, blind faith reveals itself as the path towards redemption retrospectively. Actually, this one came to me when I showered once, and what it really means and how that came to me was the fact that when life hits difficultly, You lose your job, something is up with your partner, you don't feel good, it seems like everything is crumbling around you, you get sick. All you have in that moment is faith. You know how your mind is always preoccupied with the how and the when are things improving? It's not going to improve, it's going to be this. Faith in itself is a feeling that things will be good, not really preoccupied with the how and the when. And what tends to happen is a lot of the things that we thought were the worst things that ever happened to us, a year later, 5 years later, 10 years later, we're like, that's the best thing that ever happened to me. And then the mind comes in afterwards when life has improved and says, A led to B led to C, and C led to D. That's why you're feeling better. It's almost trying to hijack that initial faith that you had, that was the sole catalyst and driver initially, that was blind because it didn't really see and know how things will map out. It just knew it will. And it's trying to say, it's trying to give you the how and the when. And you have to be very careful with that, because really what it does is it's trying to take, a lot of times, credit for something that it didn't really have an impact on to begin with. And what we have when life hits is that certain level of blind faith. And what we can do when life hits in difficult ways is look back at things that were difficult at some point, and all you really had in that time was faith. And later on, it turned out to be the best thing that happened to you. Your life has improved, your relationship improved, your business improved, whatever that was. So in hindsight, that faith revealed itself as the path towards redemption. 19. Your intuition remembers each step that already got you to your desired self. I noticed that my intuition, every time that I was following my intuition, it actually moved me closer to getting all my goals and all my desires. And the way that I started viewing my intuition is as an entity that in the quantum world is already the version of the self that I'm striving to be in this physical world. So if that intuition is already that version in a different dimension, what it's trying to do in this physical world via giving me inner tuition, inner guidings, nudging me one way or the other, is to have me step into each next step that gets me closer to my ideal self. So it remembers how I got to my higher self in that other universe. So it's almost like a flashlight. It's showing you, now make a left, now make a right, now make a left, now go straight, now stand still, don't do anything. But if you don't act upon those intuitive nudges, it's not going to mean anything. And as a matter of fact, you're going to taint your intuition. It will stop sending you those signals because your intuition responds to you acting upon it. You have to act in the physical world. You exist on the spiritual, the mental, and the physical. If your intuition from the spiritual world sending you guidance and you don't act upon it, it will stop sending you that guidance, or it will weaken the signals it sends you. And you have to dig way deeper to realize what it is your intuition is telling you. So it's paramount for you, again, it comes back to sitting in silence and allowing you to declutter your within so you can actually upscale your intuition and hear more clearly where it wants you to go. And then the second step is trusting your intuition. And in order to trust your intuition, you always and always have to have a certain level of faith and courage, because every time your intuition says something, your mind is going to tell you, don't do it, don't do it, don't go into uncharted territory. But understanding that the mind operates from the ego, and the ego is predominantly preoccupied with survival or death, and your intuition is actually preoccupied with expansion, love, creativity, you will know how to deal with that. And the last one, number 20, and I got this from Reality Transurfing by Vadim Zeland. And he essentially says, all you need to do is simply choose your desired reality. He is saying that anything that you wish to have and wish to be, think of it as being in a quantum supermarket, and you walking into the store and you're seeing your desired life with the relationship you want, the career you want, the health you want, the physique you want. It's up there on the shelf. All you need to do is go and grab it and check out. And so you go there, you find your ideal self, you take it off the shelf, and the quantum supermarket attendant comes to you and says, "Oh, here, this is it. You ready to check out?" And you're like, "Oh yeah, but question, like, is this actually going to work? I'm not so sure about that. Like, how is it possible that I will get this job? And when will that happen?" And the attendant keeps telling you, it's like, "No, no, just have it. It will happen at its time. Don't worry about it." And you're like, "Yeah, no, but that doesn't make sense." And you do it and do it until the attendant just takes your ideal version of self, your ideal life again, and puts it back on the shelf and says, "Well, I'm sorry, then I cannot help you." So really what it is us standing in our own ways. And that's because we put our mind on something, we do our meditation, we start working on our thoughts, we start getting healthy, but we have a problem persisting in it. As soon as reality around us in the physical world hits, as soon as someone cuts us off on the street, we get angry. As soon as we open the bank account and it shows zero, like, shit, zero. As soon as, we go on a date and it doesn't work out, it's like, none of that shit works. The problem is, we are not able to persist in that updated state of consciousness. You have to persist in it until it crystallizes outwardly. And the mind will keep telling you, because the mind, your old self is just an energetic entity, and your mind is trying to keep you in that old state because that old state is a safe state. It's not that the mind is bad. It just thinks if you stay in that state, you're more likely to survive on a primitive level. So it keeps telling you, forget about that. See, I told you this doesn't work. Go back home. Don't do this. Don't try this. Don't start that business. Don't take that risk. Don't invest in that. And because of that, really, we are not choosing that version of self and persisting in it. So a big part of it is not just doing the things that are aligning our inner state with our higher self, but persisting in it over time.